And everyone can see the screen okay.
It's good to know that. All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the July 6th, 2020 meeting of the San Carlos Planning Commission to order. To adhere to the San Mateo County Shelter-in-Place Order, this Planning Commission meeting is being held via teleconference. Although we are not meeting at City Hall, the public will have access to remotely observe the meeting and address the commission. So we begin every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag and great country. I invite everyone to join us. I pledge allegiance, to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much and welcome, everyone. Andrea, can we please have the commissioner roll call?
I'll go ahead and do that tonight. Chair Dugan. Commissioner Roof.
Present.
Commissioner Garvey.
Present.
Commissioner Bradley.
Present.
Vice Chair Iacopone. I know he's here. Vice Chair Iacopone.
Yes, present.
And Chair Dugan.
Here. Terrific. Public comments this evening will be received by telephone for each agenda item. I'll let everyone know when the floor is open to public comment. You're invited to call in at 669-900-9128 and enter meeting ID 238-262-027. All right. So our first item this evening is the appointment of officers. Pursuant to our municipal code, the officers of the Planning Commission serve for a one-year term, and it's been a year. So it is now our time to pass the baton and appoint a new commission chair, commission vice chair, and then we also oversee the Residential Design Review Committee. So we'll be appointing a new chair for that. Thank you, Don, for your long service on that committee, and a new
it was my honor and my duty, just like the military.
Perfect.
Enjoyed
it. Appreciate it. I've sat in a few of those.
Just got off 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, terrific. I've sat in a few of those as the alternate, and back to back with this meeting, it can be a long night. Very good. So I would suppose we should just hear from folks if there's anything they're interested in. I'd rather we don't jump right into nominating people. I think it's best that we hear from folks. Volunteers are always better than non-volunteers, I believe. So I'll just open it up to the commission. If anyone is interested in stepping into the chair, there's some tradition around the vice chair stepping up to the chair, and we can discuss the RDRC, but I'll just open it up if anyone would like to have an opinion.
This is Don, and I've served on all the positions, so I'm glad to be on the Planning Commission without any special other assignments or appointments at this time, but I'd like to nominate Jim Iacopone, our vice chair, to move up and be chair if he's willing to do that for the next year.
Jim, you are muted.
Oh, no.
How about if I unmute? Thank you.
Bradley's muted?
No, I was, Don. Thank you.
Oh, Jim.
Yes. Well, thank you, both John and Don. I would be honored, and I actually need to decline on the chair position for the coming year. I just today was given a new set of responsibilities in our firm, and I think I've already got my hands more than full. I if the vice chair role needs someone's hand raised, I'll be happy to continue to do that. But I wouldn't want to commit to the citizens of the city or you, my fellow commissioners, for the coming year to take on the chair role.
I accept that.
So Jim, it sounds like you're volunteering then for the RDRC committee chair.
Yeah, like I am actually not volunteering for that either. I just have to say, but I appreciate the sentiment in both cases.
Jim, it sounds like that you may be open or are open to being considered to be the vice chair one more year.
I would do that. I know it's important to make sure that someone can step in. And I think John and I fondly remember kind of the very early days of working together, and the staff does such a great job of the setup. So again, if we'll see what some of our other commissioners are thinking, but if that is open and a need, I'm willing.
David, I'd be very interested in your thoughts and in whether you may be available and interested in being the chair of the Planning Commission this coming year.
Well, I was targeting the vice chair position more. I do participate and run a lot of meetings during my daily professional life, so wasn't really what I was looking for here. I wouldn't exclude myself 100%, but if Ellen, if you were interested, or for that matter, if we wanted to break tradition and John wanted to continue, he's done a really outstanding job. I would be open to discussing those. I'd like to see, John mentioned at the beginning, before jumping right into the nomination to discuss, I'd like to see the chair take a role of kind of ensuring participation and input across the commission. It's my one moment to kind of toss that out there, and John has done that on many occasions, but it's something that I think we could build on and kind of have to make sure that each of our voices are heard, because we each have kind of different styles in terms of how we jump in on the discussions. So I just wanted to get that thought out there, and while letting my earlier comment about being more interested in the secondary position than the primary, although not excluding myself entirely if we really need it.
Thank you, David. I appreciate the thought on running inclusive meetings, and yeah, if you haven't excluded it, could we recruit you to be the chair this year?
Who were you talking to there?
You, David.
Oh, I mean, I was waiting to see if somebody else was more enthusiastic about that than I would.
Yeah. Ellen, did you have an opinion on?
Ellen, this is your moment.
Stepping into the chair role or not?
I'll step up here as the rookie. I have learned so much from each of you in the past year. It's been an exciting year, and I have more time on my hands than I think many do. I'm no longer working. And if it's the pleasure of my fellow commissioners, I'd be honored to serve as chair. I guess the only caveat I would say is I think that would fill my plate rather quickly, and I would probably not also be interested in having a role on the RDRC in addition.
No, we normally don't do that. They're separate. And you have my vote for chair, Ellen.
Yeah, Ellen, I appreciate that. I think I would be very supportive of you as our Planning Commission chair as well.
As would
Thank you very much. If that's the wish of my commissioners, yes, I would be honored to serve. Of all of my colleagues, if that's what you would like, I'd be very happy to do it.
Wonderful. I also like that thought. So are we going to vote for the chair and then move on the list, or do we want to just talk about everything informally and then do the votes?
I guess why don't we take momentum where we find it? I would entertain a motion to nominate Ellen as our chair.
I'll second.
That would, John, were you making a nomination? I'd be very happy to make the nomination for Ellen to be chair.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Don, do we have a second for that?
Yes, I'll second.
Terrific. All in favor of Ellen Garvey as the chair of the San Carlos Planning Commission for the 2020-2021 year, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Terrific. Congratulations, Ellen. You will be our chair, seated at our very next meeting next month. So congratulations, and I look forward to working with you in that capacity.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited about the opportunity, and I'm very honored to serve. And I will look forward to leading the meeting at our next regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Terrific. Thank you, Ellen.
I'd like to make a motion that the record show including everyone, our appreciation for a job well done by John Dugan this past year.
Well, thank you, Don. I appreciate it. It was an interesting year. We saw a lot of agenda items that took some real work and focus and effort. And when I reflect back, I recall a lot of 5-0 votes. So I just appreciate everyone's collaboration and thoughtful input. And obviously, we're all led to a good place by our tremendous staff. And it just felt like a solid and productive year. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, I'll echo Don's comment. Great job.
Third from here.
And I will echo that as well. I learned so much from each of you, and especially the chair. There's a lot to learn just about procedures, and then there's all of the issues themselves. And it's been quite a learning experience, and I really appreciate the good work of the chair.
Terrific. So unless there's another opinion, it seems like perhaps, David, you are interested in the vice chair position?
I would be interested in the RDRC is somewhat more challenging. Just if I ever go back to the office, which who knows these days, but it's a little harder for me to manage a 5 o'clock timing on a regular basis, although I did serve as an alternate and made that happen a few times. But the vice chair would be wonderful. I would be honored to be ready in case Ellen is not available for a particular meeting.
Well, I appreciate that, David.
I move for David Roof for vice chair of the Planning Commission this following year.
And I'll second. I think a great choice.
Terrific. All in favor of David as our vice chair, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. Congratulations, David. You will be our Planning Commission vice chair for 2020 to 2021.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the positive sentiment there.
Terrific. So that does bring us to RDRC, which I will just personally chime in and say I do not feel like I have the capacity to pick up a 5 o'clock commitment this year, as much as a lot of good stuff happens on that committee. coming off of commission chair, I think, I think I'd be open to be the alternate on that committee, perhaps, because I do think it's nice to keep some touch to that. But I think we will have to identify a chair for that committee.
Jim, might you be inclined to consider the role of chair of the RDRC?
Again, Ellen, I think I just had a lot of things put on my plate today that I've been anticipating, and I really couldn't, in good conscience, tell everyone that I could do it justice. So I'm more than happy to be the alternate, but I would not be right in raising my hand to be chair of that.
If I may, through the chair, Chair Dugan, you're still chair for tonight. I thought I heard a couple of times the commission mentioning 5 p.m. and I just wanted to clarify if it's helpful. Well, it will be helpful, but the RDRC starts at 5:30. If that makes any difference, it's 5:30 p.m.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa.
I am respectful of the busy schedules of many of my colleagues on the commission, and I am respectful that Dawn has already done a year, just finishing it up as chair of the RDRC. So I'm wondering if I should pivot and be more open to something I said I wasn't going to be open to, which was to do 2 committees. I'm not sure about the workload, but I also understand that, Dawn is just finishing up a year with the RDRC and may need a little bit of a break. So I am open to convincing on the RDRC, I guess is how I'll put it.
Well, I hadn't thought of this at all, but it looks like everybody that can is doing all they can, both for us and other challenges at work in their lives. So I wouldn't be opposed for running for RDRC again, if that pleases the commission. Actually, RDRC is more work than being chair of the Planning Commission in many ways, because you have more projects usually, and it's earlier, so it's tough on people's schedules.
Don, that's a generous offer, and as I said, I'd absolutely be up for backing you up. I know we need an alternate for any times that you would not be able to join. So again, knowing that we all need and want to contribute, I would be very willing to do that as an alternate. If you'll,
well, that would just be great, Jim. If you would do it, I would appreciate it that way.
Okay. I'm happy to be your alternate.
I would just chime in. Well, Don, thank you for your tireless service on that committee. And it's not lost that it's back to back with this meeting, which has run till 11:30 more than once in the past year. So that is, even starting at 5:30, that's 6 hours tacked on to the end of the day. So certainly appreciate that effort. So I'm certainly supportive of that. Don continuing as the RDRC chair, backed up by Jim. And, one kind of more open thought would be that could be a bit more collaborative. I mean, maybe Don and Jim, you guys could check in with each other from time to time. And, it doesn't just have to be Don when you're on vacation. It could, you could ask for the alternates help a bit more than normal if it happens to work into Jim's schedule.
My wife will be glad to hear that.
Well, and it's no easy task, Dawn, to be on a phone for 6 or 7 hours. That's hard.
Well, it's harder for all of us that way. But
Lisa, just a quick question. I assume there's no strict attendance being taken on the RDRC in the same way there is for the Principal Commission?
Well, we do have it's a somewhat new protocol, but essentially you may recall that the new council has requested quarterly reports. Yeah. And as part of those quarterly reports, they do request an attendance log for the Planning Commission and the RDRC. And so they are looking, and I don't think it's was created, if I can say this, because of an issue with the Planning Commission or the RDRC in terms of getting attendance. With some of the smaller committees that maybe meet infrequently, there was some challenges getting attendance, and because there's a lack of quorum, then there wouldn't be a meeting. But long story short, yes, we do have to be mindful of the attendance and then provide those through the quarterly reports.
Okay, so the RDRC is subject to that attendance policy, but this, of course, would be under your chairmanship, Ellen, but I would say, a more collaborative handoff between the chair and the vice chair, at least, as a commission, we can vouch that that's not an absence of any kind. So anyway, I'm just throwing that out there because I do think it is a bit of a burden having that meeting beforehand. So Don, if you do need help, please ask for it. And with that, I would entertain a motion for both of those appointments.
Well, I move that we elect Commissioner Don Bradley as the chair of the Residential Design Review Committee.
I will second that.
Terrific. All in favor of Don Bradley as continuing on as the chair of the Residential Design Review Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. So congratulations, Don. You continue on for year 2 of the RDRC. And I would also point out that will be your 3rd year in a row chairing a San Carlos committee. So thank you again for your tireless service.
Well, I only have 2 more years left, so thank you very much. It's an honor, and it's an honor to serve with all of you. I really enjoyed it, but in 2 years I'll be termed out.
Well, that'll be a sad day for San Carlos, Don, but there's always the Park and Rec Commission.
Yeah, or run for city council. Who knows?
There you go. Exactly. Very good. So I will go ahead and move for Jim I. Capone as our alternate Residential Design Review Committee chair.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any nays? The ayes have it. Congratulations, Jim, on your alternate Residential Design Review Committee chair position for years 2020 into 2021.
Thank you. And, I know I have a lot to learn from Don. And so part of the deal of helping him on occasion will be him helping me get ready. And I know he'll do that with all of the great aplomb that he does.
One comment, I noticed a few meetings ago that Ellen was in the audience taking notes at the RDRC meeting. So that's a good idea, but I'll be more collaborative with you. And there's usually 1 day during the year, 1 week during the year that I'm on vacation. The others I just sandwich in between every other Tuesday, as all of you do. But most of you are still working. I guess Ellen and I are. Well, I still have 1 class at Berkeley. Once we get back and classes are opened. But thank you all.
Terrific. Thank you, Don, and thank you, Jim. And just showing again how nicely we collaborate as a commission. So thank you, everyone. That was relatively painless. So moving on, we're at public comment now. So we will now open up the floor for general public comment on any items not on tonight's agenda. If you do want to speak on something on tonight's agenda, you should wait until that agenda item is called. If you do want to speak, on the screen is the dial-in information. You would dial 301-715-8592 and enter meeting ID 238-262-027. Do we happen to have anyone in the waiting room for general public comment?
Yes, we do.
Terrific. We will recognize the first caller. If you would please state your name and if you're a resident of San Carlos or not.
Caller ending in 592.
Caller 592, would you like to speak at general public comment? Caller 592. I think we can hear you. Going once. Going twice. Do we have any other callers for public comment?
Yes. Caller ending in 107.
Hi, welcome. Please state your name and if you're a resident of San Carlos.
Yes. Caller ending in 107.
I think we're getting back feed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Caller 107, please maybe mute your computer. We're getting a lot of feedback and can't quite hear you. Looks like we lost caller 107.
Caller 802.
Looks like we lost caller 107.
Caller 802.
It's feedback again.
Hello?
Yes, caller 802, you are unmuted and speaking before the commission for general public comment. Please state your name.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me turn the volume down on my desktop here in my office.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. And please state your name and if you're a resident of San Carlos.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, my name is Louis A. Bonvicino. I live at 2048 St. Francis Way since 65. Went to La Jolla for college, came back and lived there again. I also have an office at 655 Skyway Road, Suite 102, and I own Elite Sales and Leasing. And
yeah,
also
I'm sorry, caller, are you wanting to speak about the agenda item on Skyway this evening?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
the appropriate time?
So that comes later in this meeting. This is actually general public comment for items not.
General, that's what I thought. I'm sorry, I was unfamiliar with this, and I will follow your instruction then at the appropriate time.
Yeah, thank you, Louis. Appreciate the call. Please stand by. You'll have an opportunity, and we do apologize and appreciate everyone's patience. This format
takes a
bit to get used to.
Very good.
Do we have anyone else here for public comment?
Not at this time.
Okay. So moving on to approval of the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting of June 1st, 2020. Commissioners, any comments on the minutes of our prior meeting?
Two small items to flag, just typos on packet page 9. Commissioner Bradley's surname, and on packet page 8, my surname, just a small typo on both, so for the record.
Terrific. Thank you for that, Jim. Anything else in these minutes we want to correct? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve these minutes with Jim's input.
I'll motion to approve the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting that we had last time, June 1st.
June 1st.
Thank you. Thank you.
Terrific. Can we get a second?
I will second that.
All in favor of approving our June 1st, 2020 minutes, please say aye.
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 Any nays? The ayes have it. So the minutes with the 2 edits Commissioner Iacoboni pointed out are approved. Terrific. We'll now enter the public hearing section of the meeting. We have one matter before us this evening concerning 655 Skyway Road. Staff, do we have a presentation this evening?
We do, thank you. Good evening, Chair Dugan and Planning Commissioners. My name is Andrea Martisich, Principal Planner. The item before you this evening is a proposal for new office and airplane hangars at 655 Skyway Road in the form of a planned development. Next slide, please. Thank you. The subject site is zoned GCI, General Commercial Industrial, and has a corresponding general plan land use designation of the same. The project site itself is located on Skyway Road to the immediate south of Hiller Aviation Museum. At the rear of the property is San Carlos Airport. You can see the runways to the rear of the red box, which is the subject property. To the south of this property are additional airplane hangars. And then to the west is Highway 101. The site itself is approximately 3.49 acres in size. And existing buildings on site include office of about 27,000 square feet and existing airplane hangars of about 22,000 square feet, all of which are proposed to be demolished. So this is just a picture I wanted to include of the existing building on site. It was constructed in the late 1960s, and the existing hangars and tie downs for the planes, which are located behind this building, house about 36 aircraft at this time. The applicant is proposing a 2-story office building at the front of Skyway Road with airplane hangars at the rear. At this meeting, the Planning Commission will conduct a public hearing and provide recommendations to the City Council on the Plan Development Plan, or the PD, and the accompanying zoning map amendment. The Planning Commission will also take action tonight and decide whether to approve the design review approval, transportation demand management plan, and the grading and dirt haul certificate. Following the recommendation, the City Council would conduct a public hearing and take action on the PD and the zoning map amendment. And should the council approve those, the Planning Commission approvals on design review, TDM, and grading and dirt haul would become effective at that time. This proposal is exempt from CEQA as well, and I will go into that a little bit more in a few slides. The zoning amendment being requested would rezone the site from GCI to a PD, which would allow the airplane hangar use at this location. Due to the location of the property that is surrounded by the airport uses, the combination of both office and hangars is what staff believes an ideal mix here. Because of the proximity to the airport, development of 100% office, which is allowed under the current zoning, is severely limited due to noise and height restrictions in place because of the airport flight paths and other standards set in place by the Airport Land Use Committee. The proposed combination of uses, that is both the office and the hangars, would allow for some flexibility by locating the hangars near the airport and allowing the office towards Skyway Road. In addition to the use, the applicant is requesting the following deviations from the GCI zoning, which would be included as part of the plan of development. The first one of those is the landscaping requirement. The applicant is proposing 6.7% of the site to be landscaped when 10% is required. The applicant is also requesting a reduced front parking setback. Normally 40 feet is required from the front property line. And in this case, the applicant is requesting a 10 to 15 foot setback for the parking only. And then as part of any plan development, a signage program is required. And as part of their program, they're requesting to have up to 550 square feet of total signage for the site, whereas the code allows up to 100 square feet, under the current zoning. The architectural design of the new buildings is contemporary in nature, and there's a variety of materials being used along the exterior. At the Skyway Road frontage, so the frontage most visible from 101 in the road, are several metal panels along with panels in an oak color. The panels do look like wood, and they extend along that whole front elevation, as you can see in these two renderings. The front rendering also has these metal canopies that extend out towards the front as well. The hangar portion of the building, which in the top picture you can see on the right side of the building, is comprised of metal wall panels in a color called champagne metallic, as well as some translucent panels. And so these are two different views from the front, and I believe the next slide will show the hangars more closely. So the upper picture again is the site that we were looking at, or I'm sorry, the view we were looking at. The one to the right is looking from the rear of the site towards Skyway Road. And the picture on the bottom shows the hangars at the frontage of the hangars. So as you can see, the design actually has the roof at the tallest point along Skyway Road, and then stepping down at an angle along the hangars. All of the hangars are named after female aviators. I didn't include all 4 elevations, but you can see an example of this on the lower rendering with the signage on the 3 hangars there. I mentioned before that the applicant is requesting a sign program as part of their plan of development. Due to the size of the building and the freeway location and orientation, through the PD, the applicant is requesting 550 square feet of signage. This would include the signage for the front of the building, the Skyway Center name, as well as all the hangar signage for each hangar. The signage concept, which is included on these elevations, would be the plan, the sign program for the project, which would basically mean that in the future, if the applicant were to propose any signage that followed these standards, it would be able to be approved at staff level instead of returning to the Planning Commission, which freeway-oriented signage has to do. So this would streamline the process in the future. Staff also spoke with the applicant and found out from them that they're not anticipating having any tenant signs on the exterior of the building. They would have a directory inside the building only. So the signage itself would be limited to the Skyway Center name and then the hangar names as shown on here. Next slide, please. The city code requires new developments to provide a TDM or transportation demand management plan as part of their proposal, which reduces the vehicle trip generation rate by 20% from standard rates. A summary of key development or key TDM measures for this project include providing a transportation coordinator, having an online kiosk, providing long-term and short-term bicycle parking, telecommuting program, and carpool van pool, as well as some EV spots. The requirement to meet this 20% trip reduction does apply for the life of the project. So the applicant is required to monitor and then submit reports to the city on their ability to meet this requirement. The city can require changes to their TDM plan if what they're proposing is not meeting the 20% reduction. And any future changes that happen throughout the years would always have to be reported as part of those annual monitoring reports. With this project, since many of the tenants or many of the measures won't be implemented until the tenants are chosen for the site. The property manager has agreed to include applicable TDM measures as part of the language within the leases to ensure that they are being met and enforced by the individual tenants as well. Next slide, please. Due to the amount of grading that is proposed, a grading and dirt haul certificate is required. The applicant is proposing to remove approximately 6,500 cubic yards of earth and fill about 850 cubic yards. Off-haul would be approximately 5,700 cubic yards, which would result in about 580 truckloads. The applicant provided this map, which shows the possible routes to get to Highway 101, depending on whether they're going north or south. But due to the location of the site, the path itself is relatively straightforward, straight to Holly Street and onto 101, and does not pass by any residences on this path. Next slide. As part of the PD, the applicant is proposing a community benefit. And the next few slides, you will see some plans that I emailed to you earlier this afternoon that I'm also including in here. The applicant is proposing to provide a dedicated community meeting space at no cost to a specific tenant. This proposal includes about 317 square feet of conference room, which I will show you on the next slide, as well as some open area. On this first floor plan, the area that is red and hatched would include the area that is included within this lease to a nonprofit who would be renting the area. So for the downstairs, it's primarily open area as well as, of course, the facilities. But if you could go to the next slide, which is the second floor, you'll see the conference room located in the middle. And that is a 12-person conference room that would have to provide all of the equipment required to teleconference, things like that, as well as the, again, the red hatched area for the upper floor. The total space of this area would be 5,000 square feet, including all the open spaces and the conference room. And the applicant has agreed to provide this space to a nonprofit 20 times per year at a scheduled time. In addition, the nonprofit could also request an additional 20 times per year based on availability. The total value that was calculated for this is about $45,396 per year. The applicant has agreed to provide this for 10 years, and so the overall value would be approximately $454,000 over that 10-year period. The city's economic advisory consultant, RSG, completed a fiscal analysis, and that was included as an attachment within your report. RSG estimated that the proposed project would generate about $1.5 million in revenue in terms of property taxes, as well as secured property taxes for the aircraft over the next 25 years. RSG also calculated that the proposal would result in a decrease of about 20% in jobs, but that overall the project would result in a net fiscal benefit to the city, again, because building a full office at that location is pretty limited due to the proximity to the airport. Next slide, please. So this is a rendering that was provided by the applicant to show the area that they would be providing for the community benefit. So the second level is the lower picture, and you can see the glass doors of the conference room along with the open area looking down onto the first floor. So this benefit, the amount of times per year to meet have been in discussion, as well as the 10-year timeline. Staff is speaking with a local nonprofit now to see if this could be leased to them and have them be able to sublease to other nonprofits when they do not use the property. So the idea is that this would be a $0 lease for whatever nonprofit is selected for that time. There are some questions that are still being worked out, and so the final details of this benefit would be included and decided on by the City Council at their hearing. But we want to...
Andrea, if I could just pause you there, I guess I'm a bit confused. Is this a nonprofit event space, or will offices nonprofit offices be installed here?
So it's primarily the conference room. So along with this space. So one of the questions we had, and we're still speaking about with the applicant, is whether this can be used for like receptions for volunteers, things like that, not just the conference room. So that is something that the nonprofit expressed interest in, is being able to use the conference room and the adjoining area for events as well. The conference room will be used by tenants throughout the day. So it's not going to be, it wouldn't be a dedicated space available 24 hours a day for the nonprofit. They would have scheduled days and times that they would be able to use it.
I see. Okay.
And I think we can go to the next slide. Okay, so I mentioned earlier this project is exempt under CEQA. Based on an analysis by an outside consultant the city hired, there are no impacts, no environmental impacts to this project, and a notice of exemption will be prepared. As part of your packet, we included the justification and report for the exemption under CEQA. And I'm available if there's any questions on that as well. One other thing I should mention is as part of that analysis, the consultant also determined that this was not a historic property due to the age. We always want to check that, even if it might not look like it would be. We want to see if there's any events there or anything about the building. And that research was done, and nothing was found to be historic under that. Next slide, please. So as outlined in the staff report, staff believes that the proposal meets all of the required findings. Prior to discussion, and after, if you have any questions for me, the applicant would also like to do a brief presentation. So I'm available for any questions if you have any now. Otherwise, the applicant is ready to present.
Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate the overview. Commissioners, any questions of staff before we hear from the applicant?
I had two, Mr. Chair. I didn't see it in the packet, Andrea, but I wanted clarification. There isn't a refueling station associated with this project, is there?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so, but thank you. And in the packet with the drawings, I was looking for how many electric vehicle charging parking spaces will there be associated with this project? I think it's 2, but I couldn't really see in the packet. The font was really small.
I believe it is 2, but I would like to have the applicant answer because they were discussing previously adding more to help with their TDM. So I'll have them answer that if that's okay.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Andrea. David, go ahead.
Okay. For the environmental review exemption, the hangars are going to be square footage area. It's larger, it's double what it is currently. So I guess the implication of that would be there would be a lot more capacity for airplanes, which have an impact on the environment. And so was that taken care of in the assessment that no environmental review is necessary?
Yes, so they did look at the types of planes, and the applicant can probably explain this a bit better, but my understanding is that with these new hangars, a different type and level of planes are going to be able to be housed here that currently can't be. And so I believe they can answer that better, but that information was provided to the CEQA consultant who did take it into account, the types of planes now versus, those in the future under the new proposal.
Okay.
Andrea, hello. Can you say I did not expect the dirt hall to be as large as the many trucks as is shown here. Can you, maybe you could describe what is going on, since I think it's at grade and it's going to be at grade. How do we move hundreds and hundreds of trucks?
So for the removal, my understanding from the applicant is that it's for site cleanup. based on what's there now to really clean up the site per the environmental standards. They could probably answer that a bit more clearly on the amount, but there's no, below grade facilities. I thought the same thing when I first saw it, and my understanding is that it's all for site cleanup.
Okay, so good. I'll ask the applicant. Second, there's a note flagged on packet page 17 that says location of parking revised standard per PD. Could you just describe what that note means?
Sure. In the GCI zoning district, if there's any surface parking that's visible from the road, it has to be at least 40 feet away from the front setback, or I'm sorry, the front property line. So the idea is that you're not seeing a lot of cars up at the front of a building. You are able to get around that requirement if you are asked for and are granted a conditional use permit. So that's under just the normal general standards for GCI. In this case, because they're doing a PD and they're asking for these deviations from requirements, that's included in that, other than having them ask for a CUP, which would be required. So it's just because it's an additional standard, it's grouped in with the PD ask as well.
Thank you. And then last question, will the timing of this construction cause the design or the build to fall within the California standards that require solar readiness or solar use? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of rooftop just begging for solar panels, and it would be good to know that that's something we're going to do.
I believe it does, unless there is any sort of exception because of the location to the airport. So again, I'd like to defer that to the applicant if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to go back, sorry, to an earlier question about the aircraft, I believe right now there's 36 able to be stored on site, and the new facility would accommodate probably about the same number, maybe even a little bit less, due to the size of the planes and again, the types. So it's a pretty even trade in terms of number of aircraft, to answer your earlier question.
All right, thank you. Andrea, it's been a while since we've had a community benefit project like this before us. I think it would benefit us and perhaps the community in general. Could we just get a brief overview of, I understand it's a planned development, that's what allows us to ask for a community benefit, but how are those sized? What is kind of the city's, does our code say specifically what sort of community benefits we prioritize, and how do we think about that? Who inside of City Hall really grapples with what's appropriate public benefit, or is it largely driven by the applicant? If we could just get kind of a general overview of the San Carlos program around that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, I can start and then possibly have Lisa Costa-Sanders jump in. So I think in the past, you've definitely seen the larger community benefits with PDs. This is one that doesn't have a development agreement as some of those previous ones have had. When a project comes in for planned development, the idea is that the developer is getting some sort of exception or deviation from the code. In return, though, the city expects to have a project that turns out better and is more appropriate than something that would be allowed under that code. And as part of that, the city is able to ask for community benefit as part of the agreement. What the benefit is can really vary. So currently right now, as you're aware, there's a lot of development going on in the city, and there's been a lot of discussion just in general about what are some things that the community of San Carlos would like to see. So it could be things from, in other cities as well, parks, or providing funds to money to some fund. They're usually pretty large. In this case, with this proposal, it was a discussion between the city and the applicant.
And Andrea, by that, is that it's just part of the normal planning discussions, or does this get into the economic development group, or who kind of leads that effort?
It's all of the above, really, and it depends on the size of the project again. So something like this is, reviewed by planning staff, by the city manager, by, the city council subcommittees, just as an idea of what's proposed and kind of what the fair trade-off would be. Something like Alexandria, for example, the Meridian 25 project that's under construction now is definitely a larger development, had its own development agreement. And, it was definitely, I would say, more discussion along with that. I'd like to actually defer to Lisa Costa Sanders to see if I'm missing anything for this. Those things.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me okay. So I've been working on quite a few of the plan developments, as well as the community benefit package and development agreements, as well as I know Al Survey is also present this evening. So what we usually start with is the fiscal impact analysis. So we have a consulting firm that specializes in that, and we used RSG for this one to take a look at what's the fiscal impact of this project and what benefit are they receiving by the rezoning. So in this particular case, we did find that it would be a net fiscal increase in property taxes to the city as those airplanes are taxed. So we do see a benefit from the project. And then the next test is to take a look at what value are they receiving with the rezoning. This is a little trickier because it's looking at the airport hangar use as opposed to 100% office use. So we tried to assign a value to that. And with that value assignment, we started the discussions with the developer about providing some community meeting space because we heard recently that that was a need. So we met with the community development director, the city manager, myself, Andrea, met with the developer and came to an agreement that community meeting space would be a great benefit for this project, as kind of the value they're receiving in the PED is not as great as other projects that say ask for an increase in floor area or an increase in height. So that's how we arrived at it, and I'd be happy to expand or answer any other questions that you have.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And then I thought I heard something about a $400,000 value over 10 years. Was that a number that we were asking them to solve to, or is that just what it happened to be?
That's what it happened to be. We were looking to get community meeting space because we've heard that's a real demand. We have a community foundation that needs spaces to meet. So we felt that that would be appropriate given this is a relatively small change in the development standards for the site.
Got it. And the San Carlos Community Foundation, that's the nonprofit that's being considered for, I guess, kind of the master oversight of this benefit?
That's correct. We are in several discussions with them on that. Yes.
I see. And so I guess if we hand it over to them, we'll just trust they handle it. But if they don't take it, how would, my wife happens to run a nonprofit. How would she even come to be aware that this was available to nonprofits in San Carlos?
Sure. So what the Community Foundation is trying to be is that arm between the city and all of the nonprofits in the area and try to connect those resources. And so that's a role that they're working towards, kind of expanding as they've been recently founded. So I think they will have an opportunity to advertise the availability a bit more in the near future.
Okay. Yeah, that seems like a nice fit then, because it's sort of a physical opportunity to do what their charter calls for anyways. So
correct.
Yeah, I can see that fit.
Yeah, I jump in here with a question along this line because I think when Andrea was mentioning this benefit, she referred to it as a specific nonprofit tenant in the singular, and so that kind of caught my ear. I mean, so is this something that the Community Foundation can swap people in and out according to need and opportunity, or is it something that would be dedicated to a particular? It would have to be a single named tenant for the 10 years.
Yeah. So the details that we're working out is that the Community Foundation would be the master leaseholder, and then they could assign it to other nonprofits. And Andrea, if you wanted to expand on that.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea was that we have sort of one nonprofit who's dealing with the lease, but also with the scheduling itself for the various nonprofits that might want to use the space. So the lease would be under their name, and they would have the sole discretion to also sublease it, so to speak, to other nonprofits, and also help with the scheduling for that.
Okay, good. Yeah. That sounds like it would maximize the benefit. Good.
Okay, very good. Any other questions of staff, commissioners? If not, it'd be good to hear from the applicant.
Commissioner Dugan, can I just interject here?
Sure.
I think it'd be, and I'd recommend that we restate for the benefit of the public the procedure for a public hearing before you open up the public hearing to comment from the applicant and the general public, just so that's in the record.
Sure. Yeah, after we hear from the applicant, we will be opening this agenda item up to public hearing.
But it's relevant for this to be stated before the applicant speaks too, just from a procedural standpoint.
And public comments going to be received by telephone this evening. And I will let everyone know when we're open to public comment. And now would be a good time to go ahead and call in at 669-900-9128 and enter meeting ID 238-262-027. And when it's your time to speak, you'll be recognized. Terrific. We can hear from the applicant now.
Commissioner Dugan, I'm not, maybe I wasn't clear, but what I'm recommending is that you speak, for the record, you speak into the record what the procedure for the public hearing is. It's stated in the agenda before we start a public hearing. And that way, everyone who's listening and the applicant and everybody who's interested in this application will know what the rules are regarding the public hearing and what their rights are.
Sure, that's fine. Yeah, we are in the public hearing section of this meeting. For this matter, our planning staff will review the project and give us the recommendation. Then we'll hear briefly from the applicant if they would like to present anything, which they would this evening. Then we will open up to public comment, and then finally we'll deliberate as a commission and make a decision.
And I'd just add that if anyone wants to challenge the public hearing item in court, they may be limited to raising only those issues that they or someone else raised at the public hearing described in the notice, the public notice, or written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the meeting.
Terrific. That is our procedure for public meetings. Applicant, it'd be good to hear more about Skyway Center.
This is John Winrick from Centrex on behalf of the applicant. Andrea or host, if you would please welcome number ending in 592. That's Marty, the applicant owner, and I believe he's in the waiting room.
He's in now.
Hello, this is Marty Eisenberg. Is it my opportunity now to speak?
Yes, you're before the commission, and we're awaiting your presentation on Skyway Center.
Thank you. Good evening, each commissioner. My name is Martin Eisenberg, and I present as a co-trustee of 3 trusts that were established by the Levin family, who have been residents of the Peninsula communities and participants in San Carlos business and commerce for literally 3/4 of a century. Mrs. Levin is now age 103 and continues to reside in San Mateo. Mrs. Levin and I serve together as co-trustees of those family trusts. I confess that I take the laboring oar on projects of this kind on account of I'm only a septuagenarian. The Levin's beginnings in San Carlos go back to the 1950s. Originally, Sidney and Zelda Levin purchased the Carlos Club in the early 1950s. Then it was a much more reputable establishment than what may have transpired over the course of recent years. They bought the building and ran the bar. Mr. Levin was the bartender, and Mrs. Levin made chili and happy hour fare, washed the dishes, and so forth. Both Mr. and Mrs. Levin have been very active in charitable and civic organizations. Sidney was a founding member of San Carlos Rotary. He remained a member of San Carlos Rotary until his passing in 2011. And in fact, Mrs. Levin performed in the Chicken's Ball back in 1953 or 54. So they've contributed meaningfully to community nonprofits. Rotary and Mills Peninsula Hospital is another example. Mrs. Levin's name is the name of the lead charitable contribution organization of that of Mills Peninsula Hospital. In part because she's suffered macular degeneration for many years, and she contributes meaningfully to ophthalmology and women's health there. This past year, the Levin family has contributed space at the Skyway building, this same premises that we're talking about, for the Chicken's Ball to use for making costumes. Unfortunately, the Chicken's Ball couldn't take place this year, and we hope those costumes will be used again, can be used next year. The Levin's children and my children too are products of public education, and you can be sure that we will continue to support the Chicken's Ball and to San Carlos elementary education in years to come. Sidney moved on from the Carlos Club late in the 50s to establish what some of you may remember as San Carlos Auto Wreckers, occupying land along Skyway Road. It was about that time he acquired the land, which is the subject of this application. He closed the Auto Wreckers in about 1995, but he continued ownership of this particular piece of property, along with another parcel of property that the Levin Family Trust continued to own at Howard Avenue and Old County Road. It's leased to the operator of Ducky's Car Wash. The subject property was zoned airport use until about 2011 or 2012, when that zoning was changed to its current status by a general plan review. It's currently improved with a two-story wood siding office structure, three buildings combined or adjoining one another, and which is a very inefficient design, and also two sheet metal hangars, each consisting of 10 T-shaped hangars for small privately owned aircraft. And there were about 15 or 16 tie downs for aircraft surrounding those. All of those improvements were erected back in the mid-1960s by a 40-year ground tenant who had little incentive to build structures that would last much longer than the year 2000 when his lease expired. The condition of the buildings is such that when I took over essentially management of the property around 2009, I hired a retired but still licensed general contractor in order to keep the building going, and it's been a lot of duct tape and baling wire. The time has certainly come to replace this with something much more beneficial both to the trust and also to the city of San Carlos. The question may arise as to, well, why didn't we do this sooner if we were convinced of the financial merit and the public and private benefit of this facility? The answer is this, that in order to operate a hangar facility, it requires access to the airport. Due to issues and behaviors of what all of you may remember as Surf Air and the political climate that surrounded its activities, it took me 6 years to reach an agreement with the county for a long-term agreement for aircraft to pass from this private property onto the airport. And without such an agreement, it would be impossible to devote the kind of capital investment that's necessary for this sort of development. After that 6 years of waiting and negotiating, the airport did grant the Levin Trust, the Board of Supervisors granted the Levin Trust a long-term agreement for passage of aircraft from this premises onto the airport property. The existing structures were erected under long outdated building codes. The premises has no fire sprinklers either in the hangars or in the office structure. The physical appearance is certainly not one that I would think that the city would want to present to the thousands of passersby on Bayshore Highway. The new facility is one that the new proposed facility is one that I believe the city can be proud of. There is no handicapped accessibility in the existing structure. There's insufficient parking for full occupancy. I should comment that about 2 years ago, there was a fire caused by a short circuit in an electrical circuit in one of the office suites of this of the office building that still has it has wooden studs in the walls. Had that short circuit and the beginnings of the fire not been noticed by a visitor to the building that evening, a fire could well have rapidly consumed the entire structure. Due to building code requirements and just the cost of revamping that 800 or 900 square feet, the property was cleared out. The asbestos-containing mud in the sheetrock was removed, and the unit was rendered safe and vacant, and it was boarded up, and it remains boarded up to this day, just on account of the nature of the structure and the expense of trying to bring that area up to requisite codes. The desire of the Levin family was to have a 100% aircraft hangar facility. Zoning and other obstacles presented just disabled that, and presented tonight is an alternative, which is certainly a good and beneficial plan, both to the owner and to the city. It allows for some 48,000 square feet of executive hangar space and about 20,000 square feet of functional modern office space. I have personally had concerns of nearby residents. I met 2 years ago with the East San Carlos Neighborhood Association. Its concerns were predominantly noise copters. This facility's aviation space is designed to accommodate fixed-wing aircraft. It's really not suitable to rotary aircraft. Part of the agreement that was reached with the county to enable that long-term agreement was that there would be no charter aircraft permitted to occupy the hangar facility. It would be all private aviation, business, and recreational aircraft. A violation of that provision of the agreement that I have with the county would result in a termination of entry rights from the property onto the airport and essentially forfeiture of the agreement. Sort of continuing the Levin Levin Family Philanthropy, we've agreed to provide the conference room and surrounding social space for use by community nonprofits for board meetings or collaboration space at least 20 times annually and potentially as many as 40 times annually. I want to offer to the members of the commission that the Levin family has been nonprofit minded for many decades, and I hope I can give a sense of comfort by the history that I've provided that they will live up to that agreement to provide benefit to community nonprofits so that they can continue to exist in what are sometimes a difficult environment. From a property taxation standpoint, the city stands to gain measurably from this development. The current assessed value of this property is less than $2 million. That's land and improvements. Upon completion of the development, the assessed value of land and improvements will be, according to the consulting firm RSG, as much as $25 million. The aircraft hangared at the facility currently are of relatively modest value. They're predominantly flight school aircraft with a few high-end aircraft in some of the hangars. But many of the aircraft are used for flight training as opposed to recreational or business use. On the subject of philanthropy, one of the hangars is occupied on a donated, that is, free basis to a community nonprofit for youth involvement to where they're building an airplane. My research disclosed that there are over 200 privately owned aircraft owned by residents of the peninsula having market values, and I don't mean new price tags, I mean resale value, ranging from $600,000 to $3 million. This facility will attract those aircraft owners from their current hangar locations in Hayward, Livermore, and more distant places to this facility where they only have to drive minutes from their home or office in order to access their aircraft. That will expand the tax base of this premises and the tax base upon which the city of San Carlos draws benefit very literally by millions of dollars of assessed value, still more. I do understand that the city has received some expressions of concern from some of our current tenants. Let me say this on that subject. A number of tenants have expressed a desire to return because the Levin family has been a good lessor, and we provide a good operation and a good place to conduct business. Many like the airport environment. There are businesses at the airport that really need the airport environment, and it's something that an office structure like this can offer. I should say that while I certainly understand the concerns of those tenants who find it inconvenient and are and to be displaced, that this is a property again that has no fire sprinklers, no handicapped access, no elevator. It's inefficient in terms of energy use, and we're going to be able to provide with downtime of say 12 to 14 months a new structure that has all of those things and a really modern environment for business in San Carlos. With that, I'm happy to answer questions that you may have, and if you have none, this can be turned over to Centrex Construction, who can describe the development further. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Marty. Appreciate the overview of the project, and sounds like a long history of support for the community. Commissioners, questions of the applicant?
Well, I have one. Again, thank you for the detailed history of the site and the building and the Levin family and trust support to our community here, and looking ahead for this constructive project that you outlined for us in detail. One question I had when I was in the Air Force about 50 years ago, one of my jobs was to make sure there weren't any trees violating the airspace of the runway. And the formula then was 1 foot rise for every 50 feet from the runway to the top, the roof of the building. And I don't know if that applies here exactly, but I trust that you've been to the Airport Land Use Commission, I believe, and made sure that you didn't violate that.
Yes, and the developer can speak to that. We have been certainly careful, and if you look at the roof plan in the diagrams that have been presented, shows that as you get further away from the runway, the roof structure is higher. So we have met that requirement. And that was one of the features, or that element, the limitation on the height limitation near the airport, really made this property difficult to develop into, say, an office structure, because you can, if you want to build 3 stories, you got to go far to the west, and really all you can do at the eastern end of the property nearest the taxiway and runway is parking. I think what we have done is to create a development that really maximizes the use of this property, and both in terms of tax revenues for the county and city, and certainly in terms of private revenue, which we will share with the city and the nonprofits. There was a question that was asked earlier about fueling. This facility will not have a on-site fuel tank. San Carlos Airport has a fuel farm, if I can use that term, in sort of a micro sense, and there is a fixed-based operator that does the fueling of most of the aircraft at the airport. That firm is a tenant of Skyway, 655 Skyway now, and he looks forward to return as a tenant. However, the fuel farm remains on the other side of the airport, and that Rabbit Aviation has several fuel trucks that travel around and would certainly be coming onto this premises to fuel aircraft. Any other questions? I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. Anything else of the applicant?
Yes, this is David Roof, and I have a question about the hangars. And I noted from the materials that the square footage was going to increase from about 23,000 square feet in the current configuration to 47,000, so it's doubling. So could you comment on the number and type of aircraft that are there now and what you would expect to be there in the new larger space?
Sure. Let me answer the first half of your question because I have personal knowledge about that, namely the kinds of aircraft that are there now. As to the kinds of aircraft that will be attracted to this facility, while I certainly have some secondhand information from John Winrich, who is part of Centrex Development, he is available as part of the presentation to follow, and I believe it would be most appropriate for John to respond to the questions as to what kinds of aircraft will be can be expected to arrive at this facility. Presently, we have 20 aircraft hangars, all T-shaped. I believe about 8 of them are leased to San Carlos Flight Center, which is a flight school, and also to Rabbit Aviation, which uses 1 or 2 as for storage and and equipment. One hangar, which would make it roughly number 9, is being used by a nonprofit for the erection of an aircraft, as I mentioned earlier. That leaves about 10 or 11 hangars that have, I would say 5 of them have high-end aircraft in them, Cirrus airplanes that sell new for about $1 million. They probably have a used value of around $600,000 to $700,000. And the others just have what I'll call fairly vanilla Cessna single-engine aircraft that probably have values ranging from $60,000 to $80,000 or $90,000. The Flight Center's the Flight Center probably has about 10 or 12 aircraft because they use tie downs as well as hangars, and the values of their aircraft probably are also $60,000 to $80,000. They're single engine, very forgiving aircraft, if I can use that term. And I will leave to John to describe the kinds of aircraft that we will be that we're already marketing to and that we expect to attract to the facility.
Thank you, Marty, and thank you, Commissioner and outgoing Commissioner Dugan and incoming Commissioner Chair Garvey. Appreciate it. To answer that question, Commissioner Roof, these are primarily targeted to owner-operator, C-level executive, or business owner type aircraft, to where these folks have decided to do this as their primary hobby on the weekend. And so the type of aircraft in those valuations that Marty was mentioning, with a $600,000 floor, and in my professional experience as a professional pilot, aircraft mechanic, and corporate aircraft owner, $3 million is quite conservative. But those aircraft, just by means of economics, are the only ones that can fit in these facilities. As Marty mentioned earlier, the flight school aircraft, they would pay for themselves several times over just by the lease rate that is being charged here at Skyway, is commensurate for its level of finish and accommodation. So those aircraft are much more quiet than the existing aircraft. In mining FAA data, the existing aircraft have an average decibel level of 80 decibels. The new and proposed tenants average 77 to 78 decibels. They operate only 1 or 2 times per week, typically on the weekends for personal purposes, whereas the existing tenants operate up to 5, 7, 8, 9 times a day. So pretty significant, not just type of different aircraft, but also use. The new proposed aircraft as well will be able to carry sustainable aviation fuel, whereas the current tenants cannot carry sustainable aviation fuel by the mechanics of those aircraft.
Okay, that helps.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. I would just, what is the age of the current structure on the site?
I'm Marty Eisenberg speaking. The ground lease was granted to the Hawks family in 1964, 1965. I've forgotten which. They then built all of the improvements that are now on the property. So that would be the 3 office buildings that are in the shape of a U, plus the 2 hangars. They were probably completed by 1967. So they are now 45 years old, essentially. Have I got that right? No, I think that's 55 years old.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions of the applicant before we go to public hearing?
Yes, please. I've got maybe my 2 follow-up questions for John, if he wouldn't mind. Maybe, or either Marty or John, could you comment again, please, on the dirt haul and the 580 truckloads? And then it was alluded to it was for cleanup. What exactly does that mean? So maybe you could just bring all of that together for us.
Absolutely. This is John at Centrex. Thank you, Commissioner Iacoponi. Tom Larson. Tom Larson is Centrex's boots on the ground project manager there, as well as Richard Jimenez with JRMA Architecture. Tom and or Richard, I believe you're in the waiting room. Would you be able to speak to that? They're able to do that more technically than I am.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Tom Larson here, project manager for Centrex. And
hello, Tom.
I can speak to the off-haul. There's a requirement that I believe it's 1,000 yards is the max we could haul off, or I guess 999 yards is the max we could haul off without needing the approval. When we went and did the massing on the project, we were coming up with totals between 2,500 yards and the 5,000 or so number that we have now. And a lot of it depends on the ability to recycle the products on the job site. And it's kind of an unknown because without actually shredding the asphalt that's already there and things of that nature, we don't know if it can be reused. So there's a potential that it has to be hauled away. And in that event that it had to be hauled away, we would have to then haul it away and get a permit if we didn't disclose it already. So it's kind of it's like a won't exceed number, I guess, would be a better way to put it. There's also some site spoils that they'll be generated when we do the ground improvements that are going to be required on the project that become part of that equation. There's also some just normal site excavation for where we're cutting for ADA spaces and things of that nature. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, Tom, thank you. Maybe you, if I could paraphrase, basically it's old asphalt that you're taking out to the extent you can't reuse it on site. That's the bulk of the material?
That's largely correct, yes.
Okay. And the earlier comment maybe that staff had made around cleanup. Cleanup was not meant to signal any kind of environmental cleanup. There's not places of soil, oily soil or other things like that you're having to haul away, or is there some kind of environmental issues you're dealing with as well?
To our knowledge, there is nothing on the site that we need to haul away. There was we did do a phase 1 environmental study on site, and we also had, as part of the geotechnical borings, they went out and did test pits in several areas on the site and didn't come up with any, one method they often go with is a simple one. Does it stink or doesn't it? And they didn't run into any of that when they were doing their borings. So we feel pretty confident that we're not going to run into any things that would require a more extensive cleanup.
Thank you. And if I could, the only other thought that I had was the compatibility of solar and all of that great roof space and plans or no plans for either solar or solar ready for that, all of that great real estate.
Yes, I'm happy to speak to that too. The hangar buildings themselves are constructed with a larger PSF rating, pounds per square foot rating, to accommodate solar. The requirement is that 15% is available for solar, for future solar use. We have 100% of the roof area available to the extent there's not a HVAC unit or some other element sitting on it. That includes the hangars, and we confirmed also that our office roofs have that same capacity. So the two shed roofs at the office, the lounge roof area, not so much because of the flat roof, the equipment, everything else will be there, but the sloped roofs over the office areas would be available for solar as well.
Good, thank you very much.
And through the chair, if I could just add on to your earlier question about the site cleanup, I apologize, I was not more clear. It is not environmental site cleanup. The CEQA consultant did review the phase 1 environmental for the site, as well as do the search for hazardous sites within the area. And were this one of those sites, we wouldn't be able to find it exempt. So I apologize for not being more clear about that.
Thanks for the follow-up.
Sure.
Terrific. Thank you, applicant. Appreciate the overview and the Q&A. This is a public hearing, though, so we can hear from the public now. If you'd like to speak on this matter, please do call in at 669-900-9128, and we're at meeting ID 238-262-027. Do we have...
Chair Dugan?
Yes.
John Winrick here at Centrex. I'm sorry. Marty, the applicant, mentioned that there were a couple other slides to run through as well. If I may, please, to close that off, and then I believe that'll answer some other questions that were on the table.
Okay. Typically, we allow 10 minutes for the applicant,
Okay.
so please do move quickly through these slides.
I will, absolutely. Thank you, Chair. Host, if we can go back. Perfect. Next slide, please. Centrex and JRMA are both aviation specialist firms, and oftentimes we develop properties, and this one would be the highest end property of its kind, not just on the West Coast, but in the U.S. And across my experience of 3 million square feet of hangar properties along the West Coast, they are significant economic development assets to cities such as San Carlos. If Marty were not developing this property himself, I would really love to come in and develop it as a developer. But just so you know, for context, I know aviation oftentimes can be a unique real estate type, but this is a huge asset for the city. Part of the need for this is that there are no other hangar spaces within the Bay Area capable of these executive-owned aircraft, such that 2 flights per day after analyzing FAA data over the last 4 years are coming from aircraft that are in the only hangar supply in the Bay Area at Noss Field, Hayward, Livermore, and San Jose. And so by allowing those aircraft to base here in San Carlos, not only is the city finally being able to reap the benefit of 70 to 80 million worth of potential property tax assets, it is also potentially reducing up to 2 flights per day for people having to not relocate anymore, if that makes sense. So we're chopping those in half at least. Further, there was a commission question earlier. There are 3 EV stalls. We talked about traffic, yes, and then the trees. The building follows a 1 to 7 slope. We spoke about the aircraft type. Currently, as far as the economic proposition, there is a wait list of 95 aircraft. Yes, 95 at the county wait list for the San Carlos Airport. And so on our professional experience, we are highly confident in keeping vacancy rates in the hangar specifically extremely low. Even through the Great Recession, and even more so exaggerated within the last 4 months in COVID, hangar rates across the country for this clientele remain sub 5%, which is unheard of compared to any other type of real estate product. And I have full confidence backed by the data of local comparisons that those would be the same. If we can, next slide, please. Again, this is just a brief view of the conference room. One element that was not mentioned, if you could go next slide. Notice that the glass partitions that were there are now removed. This is a flex space to grow to up to 5,000 square feet. And then here, mentioned earlier, next slide with the pictures on it of the female aviators. Within the community event space, the community benefit space, as well as through the aircraft or aviation tenant lounge and the hangars themselves. This is a development to really celebrate the story of groundbreaking female aviators. Briefly, Bessie Coleman, the first African-American and Native American female pilot worldwide in 1921. Gina Yeager, the first female aviator period to circumnavigate the globe nonstop. Amelia Earhart, of course, and Harriet Quimby was the first female pilot certificated in the United States in 1912. And these stories will be represented throughout all aspects of the building. This is not just the development, but it's truly telling a story, which I think is really timely and often untold within the world of aviation. If you can go to 2 more slides, that one right there. The architectural metal panels Andrea spoke to, I won't touch on this much, but really this is to mimic an R&D style loft setting. in the previous slide with translucent light panels and extensive glazing. It sounded like this is in line with the type of companies that San Carlos would like to recruit to the area. And again, I believe this is an economic engine to do so. Next slide. And this will be the end here. Continuing on with the request for approval, I ask your consideration that even though the proposed landscaping is 10%, we're asking for 6.8% with proposed landscape. And it sounds like a commissioner has had history with trees on airports. Trees on airports are bad. They hold birds, and birds are bad for airplanes. And so this is really not just a landscaping issue. It's not a planning issue, but this is first and foremost an aviation life safety issue. If there were any further concerns on the landscaping, I understand it's atypical for the type of developments you're typically seeing, but I appreciate the approval of all of these items, including this one. Thank you for your time, Chair.
All right, thank you for that. I do think we have a few folks waiting on public hearings, so we'll hear from the public now. Is there anyone in our waiting room?
There was, and then they left. So I think we should give them about 1 to 2 minutes if they would like to rejoin.
Sure.
John, this is Ellen. Maybe while we're waiting, I have 1 or 2 questions of John. First, thank you for confirming that there's not 2 EV charging stations. There are 3. I'm really pleased to hear that. And I was also very pleased to hear more about the representation of female aviators in the lobby and in visible areas. And I really appreciated that. I didn't get that from the packet, and I meant to ask it, and I appreciate you highlighting that. That's a very good story. My one question relates to the roof. In the packet, I heard it referred to as a cool roof, which would reduce the heat island effect inside the building, which is terrific news from an energy heat balance standpoint. I'm wondering what the pilots feel about that. My experience with cool roofs is they're usually white and they're usually reflective. Is that okay for someone coming in to land a plane? Or maybe I'm wrong on what a cool roof actually looks like these days.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Garvey. It's a great question. And first of all, yes, you're right. Part of Cal Green and the intent environmentally in general for this development is the reason behind that. The runway orientation of San Carlos is the way that we can achieve a cool roof here. So let's say that arrivals and departures are roughly north and south. That's the only direction the airport is. And then with a strictly east-facing roof line for folks arriving and departing on to the north, any reflection would be behind them and absolutely a non-issue. And then any potential glare arriving to the south is drastically minimized, if not completely eliminated, because of the east-facing roof. Also, with the water nearby, any glare that could happen because of the sun would be there anyway, regardless of whether or not the building is there. So for my 12 years as a professional pilot, 3,000 flight hours, it's my experience recommendation that it would be a non-factor to the pilots and certainly not a safety factor. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific. It looks like we do have folks waiting to public comment. So sure.
Caller ending in 473.
Yes. Hello? 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 Yes, can you hear me? Yes, this is Louis Bonvicino. I called earlier. Appreciate your consideration.
Yes, please proceed. You have 2 minutes.
Oh, great. Okay, I have been here since July 1st, 1985. And I have been in 3 suites here. Really good relationship with Mr. Hawks, and also Nice consideration by the Levin family. My main question is, this is exactly the wrong time for this to happen to me and several other clients that I represent here and in an association with. Business activity basically stopped on March 1st. Through this last hour and 49 minutes, heard nothing about this COVID response or something called State Judicial Council Emergency Rule, which Mr. Aronson from the City Planning Department made me aware of on May 13th. This was not made aware of on June 29th when I spoke to Andrea in the Planning Department. However, this ruling states that there is no commercial evictions until the end of phase 4. And I'm just trying to get a ruling on this and just see what's going on. If people are not aware of this, I don't think we're anywhere near phase 4. There's been a new record set today at 11,529 cases. So I'm a little bit of a quandary, both financially when things stopped in March and with 3 eviction notices I've received since May 15th.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Thank you for the public comment. You know, I'll let applicant respond briefly to that comment on, I don't know exactly where this project plan is at, but I'd imagine we're sometime, you know.
I've got an eviction notice. Let me interrupt. I've got an eviction notice August 31st, which is fine. I've received it 4 times, which is a little bit odd, including from the lessor and an eviction attorney that gave me a litany of information that even though this emergency council, state judicial council emergency rule is in place, I'm responsible for damages that occur as a result of delaying the project after August 31st of this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give applicant a minute or two if they'd like to respond directly to that. Obviously, this is a time of crisis and it is a challenge for all small business owners. So the application of an ordinance like that is beyond the purview of our commission this evening, but I will let the applicant speak briefly to that if they like.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. And yes, thank you for the question. Would the host please admit waiting room number ending in 592? Again, that's Marty. And as owner, I think this would be best discussed by him.
I've discussed it with Marty already. He was not aware of it.
Thank you. And it'd be outside of my professional purview as well. So I hope we can have Marty here come on the line.
Well, let's talk about, I was informed by the planning department about this. Mr. Adam Aronson sent me the link to this state judicial council emergency rule established May 13th of this year in response to what's going on with this phases.
I'll just chime in to say, I mean, I absolutely understand the challenge of this situation from your perspective. You know, the application of something like that, honestly, would be something best for you to address with your attorney. If there is a moratorium, it should be relatively easy to respond to that notice of eviction, but that is not something that our commission's tasked with considering this evening. So we do have to stay on our agenda, but I'm certainly sympathetic to your situation.
That was basically it, but it's ironic that I was provided this information by the San Carlos Planning Department as some support to, you know, our transition here.
Yeah, and I hope that was of support. It's just beyond the purview of our commission is all. Very good. Thank you for your input. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak at public hearing this evening?
Yes, caller ending in 399.
Caller 399, we cannot hear you.
Yes, caller ending in 399.
Yeah, hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Please state your name for the record, and then you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, good evening, commissioners. Yeah, my name is Brian Dorward. I'm a civil engineer that works with Greenwood and Moore. We're actually working for the applicant, and I'm kind of on the line to, I guess, answer any technical questions you may have on the civil plans. And I also wanted to maybe elaborate some more on the grading quantities.
Sure.
So it's a fairly large site. It's 3.5 acres, and what Tom Larson described from Centrex is it's fairly accurate that most of the off-haul is due to cutting down the subgrade for the new pavement. Basically, you're removing all the existing pavement. You're going down a foot, and if you do that over 3.5 acres, that's almost 6,000 cubic yards of off-haul right there. So a significant amount of the off-haul is going to be, getting down to subgrade.
Okay.
And I don't know whether you have any other specific questions for me at this time. I'm available to just kind of hang out in the waiting room if anything comes up. And I believe also, I think Jeff Moore is also in the waiting room, and he may be able to answer questions as needed.
Okay. If we have any other dirt hall questions, we will let you know. Thank you.
Sure. Or anything else related to the civil plans.
Terrific.
Oh, sure. No, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public for public comment on this project on Skyway?
Not at this time.
Okay. We seem to have several people try to join and then fall off, so I'm going to give it 1 more minute. So if you're watching this and you want to speak, now is the time to dial in. The numbers on your screen. We'll give it 1 minute. Okay, I don't see anyone else trying to join the meeting. I will entertain a motion to close public hearing on this item.
I move that we close the public hearing.
And I second that.
Terrific. All in favor of closing public hearing, please say aye.
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 Any nays? Hearing none, public hearing is now closed. Commissioners?
Well, I can start by saying, since our resolution that we'll be making tonight, if we agree, is to is a recommendation to the City Council to adopt an ordinance that approves this. And so part of our role here is to kind of get stuff out on the table to facilitate the City Councils who will be picking up the ball after us. And from a community perspective, I would think the community would be interested in the impact that this could have on the community itself. And so far, from what I've been hearing, it seems fairly modest in the increase, or maybe there won't even be an increase if the type of aircraft shifts to higher end ones that are only used occasionally. But I thought this was kind of an important thing to get on the table in terms of the impact of this development on the surrounding area, and so the number of planes, as I understand it, is going to remain approximately the same, even though the square footage of the hangar storage area will double. Even a doubling, I guess, isn't a huge impact in terms of the number of airplanes in the sky over our city, because it's a relatively small number to start with. So I've kind of had that concern going into this, and the answers I received tonight to me seem like we're in an acceptable range of we're not going to be drastically increasing the traffic. Airplane traffic in and out of the airport in a significant way. But I wonder if anybody else has any concerns there, or if we're all kind of comfortable with that situation.
David, I think that that's a good observation. And what I appreciated about John Wenrich's answer or comment was the change in mix of aircraft is likely to change the number of effective trips. Or the lack, although there is a lack of change in number of aircraft, I took it that there would likely be a decrease in number of actual flights from during the weekend to mostly on the weekend. And I think, from a noise, from an air pollution perspective, all good things. And then I think from a tax base and therefore taxes available to the city, it seems like we'll get a dramatic increase in the value of the property, the assessed value, and also the aircraft that reside there. And those seem like favorable economic impact to the city. It didn't occur to me to ask staff if there was any estimate as to the dollar value and change in taxes, but I suppose no time like the present. So Andrea, was any calculation like that done?
Let me pull up the report real quick. If you want to go maybe to your next comment, I'll look that up real quick while you're.
Yeah, great, thank you.
You don't have to wait.
Yeah, thanks. I think, from my perspective, the new facility looks much more attractive than the old one. I think having space for board meetings and other meetings of local not-for-profit seems a good thing. Like our incoming chair, I also appreciate the call out and celebration of women in aviation. Aviation's certainly part of my wife's family's history, and especially women in aviation. So I appreciate that. It seems overall like a quality project replacing something beyond its years at neutral environmental impact, and we'll find out with what kind of economic benefit.
And I will echo Commissioner Yakapani's comment on the design. It is very attractive. I drove by the existing property the other day, and it is much less attractive. And this new design is just really, really attractive. And I also really appreciate, and I didn't mention this earlier, that the utilities are going to be undergrounded. I think that is a really positive thing on a number of levels. And I appreciate that that's a part of the project. And the other thing I liked about the project, and we didn't comment on it too much tonight, was in the transportation demand management plan, there's going to be a strong encouragement or even a mandate for the new tenants to consider using transit, taking the nearby train, biking to work, carpooling to work. So I think those are all also positive attributes of this project.
Yeah, I'll chime in to say it's a handsome building. It'll be an improvement over what's there. Looks like they worked with the city well on the plan development, and I like the idea of the San Carlos Foundation having a physical way of bringing the leadership they intend to bring to our local nonprofit community. I think that'll be a good asset of theirs, at least for 10 years, and hopefully that partnership remains positive and it doesn't have to end at 10 years. I guess I would, chide the applicant a bit. If it's true, we're handing out eviction notices right now to struggling commercial tenants. You know, I would ask them to be compassionate around that. Make sure their attorneys don't go too crazy with the threats of additional damages, et cetera. That seems not very neighborly at this moment in time. So that is disappointing if that's happening. I think there is, in fact, a moratorium. I'd imagine your tenants will figure it out. And so you'll have to respect that. So I don't think, you know, anything heavy-handed is at all warranted at this point in this crisis. So that's my input.
Through the chair, I believe the information you're looking for is the net new tax impact, correct?
Yes, the case was made that there was a much larger tax base in terms of assessed value and maybe personal property at the location. And so if you have any view as to what the net increase was, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think it's in an earlier financial report that was done. I'm trying to find the earlier version. It looks like, yeah, it looks like it's not in this one. I will keep looking while the discussions occur. I think this is from the first report we got from RSU, which is not included in this. It was used as a basis for discussions about community benefits. So I will pop back in when I get that.
Yeah, terrific. Any other discussion or comments from the commission?
Well, the scale seems compatible with the area. It's all compliant with the zoning standards, so at least we don't have to worry about that for once. I think we're signing off on the sign, the Highway 101 facing sign.
That's a good point.
I mean, if I'm reading this correctly, we're making the recommendation to the city council, and then if the city council approves it, then we'll have provided the design review and transportation demand management plan, grading, etc. Sign off in advance. So that seems efficient, and that's probably fine for this. But just wanted to make sure we don't get to the home stretch and then suddenly say, wait a minute, what about the Highway 101 facing sign?
I appreciate you raising that issue. They did ask for more sign square footage, but I think a lot of that was to have a sign above each hangar. It wasn't just one big sign on 101. There is a 101 sign, but I believe each hangar also had a placard with the female aviator's name, and I personally was okay with that.
Yeah, I thought it looked quite nice. It seemed pretty reasonable and appropriate for the use.
Yeah, I thought it was nice. I like the historical references, specifically for the women aviators. That is nice. But Andrea, is there, so we're approving, I guess, 5 times the normal amount of allowed signage. Does that mean they could later choose to consolidate all that into a quite large sign facing the freeway? Or do we as a city always have some control now that the signs have to stay facing the runway, et cetera?
So as part of the sign program, it would generally have to follow what's shown on the plans. So location, size, things like that. If they were to come back with a significant change, which that definitely would be, we would have to bring that back to the Planning Commission for a modified sign program.
Okay, so since they're not in compliance, any changes they make would have to be reviewed again.
Correct. So they could generally be reviewed by staff if they're proposing signage as shown on the hangers on the front, as long as, their channel letters, basically what they've proposed. The wording might change slightly, but any significant change to that, we would not be able to approve at staff level. We'd have to send it back to the Planning Commission for review and consideration.
Got it. But is that also true if they wanted to make that change in 10 years?
Yes, I apologize. Yes. And to jump in on the other question, I did find the net increase in property taxes on the plains is about between 80 and 110,000 annually, depending on the valuation of the plains.
Great, thank you very much. That seems like a good increase.
Okay. Commissioner Bradley, any thoughts or comments, or are we ready to approve this thing?
Fine. Hello?
Yeah, Don, we can hear you.
Okay, I went out for a while there. About the last 5 minutes, I was talking to myself. I'm ready to vote for it. My only concerns were I thought that I couldn't understand the large amount of dirt to be hauled out in a way, even with the asphalt. Then the other thing was the airspace criteria, making sure they weren't in that in case somebody was not a good aircraft lander. The idea, of course, is to have as many landings as you have takeoffs, we say in the Air Force.
I thought that was guaranteed because what goes up comes down, right, Don? One way or another.
Yeah. And the guy piloting a plane and had to bail out when he hit the ground. The police came up and said, "What happened?" He says, "I don't know. I just got here too."
Very good.
I'm getting punchy, guys. I started at 5:30.
Understood.
Well, how about I will move that the Planning Commission conduct the public hearing and adopt the resolution recommending the City Council adopt an ordinance approving the proposed planning development plan and zoning map amendment. I further move that the Planning Commission approve the design review, transportation demand management plan, and grading and direct haul certificate subject to City Council adoption of the ordinance.
I will
Bradley will second.
So before we vote on that, I just have a question about the wording here. Is this, I move that the Planning Commission conduct the public hearing. Didn't we already do that?
I think so.
Is there something funny about the wording here?
It does.
No, I noticed that.
Yeah, that language is not necessary to include in the motion, but I think we have your intention in making the motion.
Okay, great.
Okay, terrific. We have a motion and a second. Can we get a commissioner roll call, please?
Commissioner Roof?
Yes.
Commissioner Garvey?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Vice Chair Iacopone?
Yes.
And Chair Dugan?
Yes. All right. The item is approved to go before the City Council. Good luck with the project, gentlemen. All right. That moves us on to reports, correspondence, and general information. Do we have a report on recent City Council actions?
Good evening, Chair Dugan. There are no relevant City Council actions to report to the Commission this evening.
Okay. Commission, any comments or reports any of you would like to share?
If I could, just again for the record, thanks to John for leading us and guiding a very busy year, and not without a lot of prep and thought on your part. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, John.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed it, and it was nice collaborating with all of you and working closely with staff. And I think we have our work cut out for us. I think we'll be talking about East San Carlos soon and a lot of other interesting projects. So you've got your work cut out for you next year, Ellen, as do all of us.
And staff would also like to thank Commissioner Dugan for a job well done. Much appreciated for running a great meeting, and also being our first chair to lead planning commissions via Zoom. Job well done. This was new for all of us, but you handled that very well. So thank you.
No, well, I appreciate that. Staff, you guys did a good job putting it together. Not easy to change literally everything. And hopefully we'll be past this moment in time pretty soon. I think we're all in agreement on that.
Amen.
Very good. Any correspondence for the commission?
None for this evening, and I'd just like to check with Andrea. Was there any correspondence regarding the public hearing item for this evening?
No additional correspondence.
Thank you.
Terrific. Staff, any additional comments, reports, or updates on current or future projects?
Yes, I would like to inform the commission, and for any people who might be watching or have called in or are listening to this meeting, is that City Hall just opened this week. We are open to the public. Staff is rotating in and out of the office. We are encouraging all of our applicants and customers to continue to use the online services that we've employed since the shelter in place and closing of City Hall has occurred. However, if somebody does need to come to City Hall and speak with the planner during our counter hours or building, they will be assisted. However, we are strongly encouraging to continue using the online portal to submit applications. And we're still responding by phone and by Zoom and by email and being very responsive to our customers. I did want to let the Planning Commission know that. Of course, we are continuing with our virtual hearings. So the council is continuing that, as well as all of the commissions at City Hall. So just again, we are officially open, but still encouraging people to use the online platforms. Coming up at your next Planning Commission hearing, which is set for July 20th, we have 3 items that will be on your agenda. So just to give you a little preview of what that includes is a demolition and reconstruction. I guess it's not reconstruction, but it's a demolition and construction of a new fire station number 16. And Lisa Costa-Sanders, if you're still on here, maybe you can give the address, but I believe this is the one on, I think it's on Alameda de las Pulgas, but it's fire station number 16. So we'll be getting a new and improved fire station for the Planning Commission to look at. So this is a city-initiated project. The second thing we'll be looking at that evening is a policy consideration for vehicle miles travel. As some of you may recall, through CEQA, changes to CEQA law, there's a doing away with level of service, at least as a CEQA related impact. And that is going to be replaced with vehicle miles traveled, which is a new standard. So the Planning Commission will be given a presentation on those changes and then the new policy that the city is looking to adopt. So you'll be making a recommendation on that. And then finally, the third thing, there's no formal action. It's just really about getting acquainted with and receiving a presentation on a current project that has been launched, which is the Climate Mitigation and Adaptation Plan. say we will have city staff available to make that presentation. And we'll also be talking a little bit about the upcoming update to the safety element. Both of those two plans, if you will, correlate with one another, and both of them are being launched. One has been launched and one will soon be launched. And so we'll give you an introduction on both of those, and for the benefit of the public who may be or will be invited to participate and provide public input on the development of those plans. And then following July 20th, right now we have one item on the agenda. You may recall a proposal for a new office building, a new mixed-use building at 993 Laurel. That's on the corner of Laurel and Morse. So this will be a new mixed-use project with ground floor service uses and then office above. So that'll be coming forward on August 3rd. We are planning on providing the council with a summer break similar to what we do every year. So we're looking at the meeting of August 17th for the Planning Commission break. And I will send this information out via email so that you don't have to remember all these details. And then we'll return on September 8th, which will be a Tuesday because of the Labor Day holiday. And that is all I have this evening. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Lisa. Yeah, it's definitely nice to get the overview of what's coming up, and yeah, what you guys do is definitely an essential service. So I'm glad to hear City Hall's opening back up, but do hope you guys can keep it safe and keep yourselves in a place that you feel comfortable. But I appreciate your service on that front. And with that, unless anyone else has anything, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.